Welcome to 101 East. I'm Steve Chow. They're one of fashion's most enduring icons worn by people the world over. But what does it take to produce a pair of jeans? In this undercover investigation, we travel to the Chinese city of Xintang, the denim capital of the world, and find workers exposed to life-threatening diseases. This week, Lin Li and James Leong revealed the real cost behind the making of a pair of jeans.
Hidden behind factory doors across China, workers toil to produce one of the world's most popular fashion staples, denim jeans. But for some, there's a heavy price to pay.
有时候会加班加到1天或者2天不下班。
In a one-year investigation, 101 East travels to southern China, producer of nearly a third of the world's jeans. We meet workers exposed to dangerous conditions. We witness the devastating environmental damage caused by the industry. And in the most shocking discovery of all, we find factories using a deadly process to manufacture jeans: sandblasting.
那个呼吸肯定困难的，好像有什么东西到里面去，空气不干净的。
We discover that while some big brands are cleaning up their act, others continue to turn a blind eye. Working undercover, we spend time inside a factory where conditions are appalling. We also discover jeans bearing the names of two major American labels. This is what sandblasting looks like. Fine sand is channeled into an air gun and then sprayed at high pressure onto denim in order to make the fabric look fashionably worn. It's fast, cheap, and dangerous. Constant exposure to minute particles can lead to a deadly respiratory disease known as silicosis. In 2009, Turkey banned the process after hundreds of former workers were diagnosed with the disease. Dozens more have died. But it remains legal in China. Zhang Guanghua runs a mobile operation providing sandblasting to various factories. The supply chain is complicated, and most of the time, Zhang doesn't know which label he's doing work for. He and his team are paid around 6 cents for each pair of jeans they sandblast. It's dusty, dirty work. Tiny sand particles fill the air, and there's a sharp stench in the poorly ventilated factory. But Zhang believes he is adequately protected.
这个灰尘，它这个只口罩一戴，它全部在外面嘛，它进不了的嘛。反正我们打杀这个很多人的嘛，是吧？还没有听到说哪一个说打杀真正说得过什么，职业病还没有的嘛。
Other workers we meet seem equally unfazed. Liu Guanghui has been sandblasting for more than a decade. His colleague Luo Bin for 8 years.
像你说的喷砂对身体有害，我感觉应该没什么害。那因为喷砂的话，它是
对身体有害的，我觉得是马硫。
是马硫。相对来说，喷砂跟手擦对身体没什么害的，就马硫。 马硫它那个是那个高锰酸钾吧，化学物品来的嘛。喷砂的，说实在就是物理反应一样，你把上面表皮打掉一层，又没什么有害物质上去了。
就会有一点点灰啊，有一点点灰，那就没什么。
就有点灰。
But industry leaders, activists, and medical practitioners disagree, and in 2010. Levi's and H&M launched a global campaign to eradicate sandblasting. Many other labels have also vowed to abandon the practice. Labour rights activist Liang Pui-Kwan says some brands are not honouring their word.
The famous brands, they actually made a volunteer promise to stop sandblasting in their production. But in China, when they have their operation in China, they just don't care what is happening in the factories.
To find out what's really going on, we travel to Xintang, an industrial city in southern China known as the jeans capital of the world. Almost every other business here is linked to the trade. From dyeing plants to weaving workshops, huge facilities surrounded by high walls, and tiny backyard factories overflowing with garments. Our first stop is Chongqing, one of China's biggest denim manufacturers. On its website, Chongqing lists numerous international brands as its clients. It also openly advertises sandblasting services. Posing as a worker, our researcher goes to Chongqing's recruitment office to find out if there are any sandblasting jobs available.
有没有喷砂呀？
没喷砂了，现在不做喷砂了。
哦，都不做喷砂，我之前都他们说让我到这里来。
没有喷砂3、4年就没做。
At a mid-sized sewing factory in the city, we meet clothes sourcing expert Edward Knapheide. His client is a German discount chain, and Knapheide tells us that even cheaper European labels have strict codes of ethics for their suppliers. We ask him about sandblasting.
I will lose the confidence to my customers, or they losing it to us, if we trying to use it, you know, or when we use it. So there is no option for us even to think about it.
Our next stop is Zhongshan Yida, a major contract manufacturer servicing high-profile brands like Levi's and Gap. The plant is modern, efficient, and nothing like some of the small backyard operations we've seen. The CEO of Yida's parent company says the factory stopped sandblasting in 2010, but admits it wasn't easy.
Initially, it was very tough because, using the new technologies, it cannot produce 100% of the look of sandblasting, which the customer needs.
Outside the factory, a worker who doesn't want to be identified confirms that Yida no longer has a sandblasting unit. But he says there are other problems.
有些车间工作量大，有时候会加班加到1天或者2天不下班，这个也有，但是就是1年可能就1、2次，可能不是厂里的决定，应该有些就是他们主管啊或者经理啊，就这样子为了赶货嘛，有些那些买假的员工嘛，他那个手势啊，那个手经常就是做那种动作比较死板嘛，时间长了那个骨头啊，就容易发生变形。
The company's CEO denies employees are forced to work excessive hours.
They can opt out for sure, but most of them because they want to earn more money also. Because working overtime actually pays quite a lot more, so they are willing and would like to work more overtime. But we have we cannot work too much overtime above the local labor laws because we cannot exceed the local labor laws.
So far, our investigations show that although there are factories in China that offer sandblasting services, most international brands steer clear of the practice. But we've been alerted to possible violations at another factory. We head to the nearby port town of Machong. From the outside, Tianxiang looks like any other industrial building. But inside, secret footage shot by a former employee whom we will call Shan tells a disturbing story.
到里面来的话，噪音就很大，换水药品的气味也比较浓，所以我每天闻那个东西之后吃饭吃不下来，所以每天都空着肚子工作了。
Photographs taken by Shan show chemicals haphazardly stored in open containers. Inside a crowded room, workers spray potassium permanganate onto rows of jeans to give them a faded look. The process can be safely carried out, but for these workers the risks are high. They wear very little protective gear, often coming into direct contact with the chemical. Overexposure can irritate eyes and skin and cause nausea, vomiting and respiratory problems. Throughout the factory, the pace is frantic. The place looks like it hasn't been cleaned in years. There's even a notice on the wall warning the workers that exposed electrical wires have turned their dormitories next door into a fire hazard. In a separate area, away from the main factory, is the sandblasting unit.
我刚进去的时候就觉得很呛，我要咳嗽了。然后那个呼吸肯定困难的，好像有什么东西到里面去，空气不干净的。
This looks like one of many factories making cheap jeans for the domestic market. But it appears they're doing work for foreign brands, including American Eagle Outfitters. This photo, which Shan says was taken in the sandblasting unit, shows a Hollister label. Karl Borgschultz has worked in the textile industry for more than 25 years and advises on sustainable work practices. We ask him to look at Shan's footage.
These little face masks, these paper masks, that does not keep you safe dealing with this. If you want to really do this in a well-maintained industrial process, you really have to wear a real solid mask where you have outside air supply, so that the air you breathe is definitely not the air which is in front of you with all the sand and the dust in it. Nothing's sufficient, the light isn't sufficient, the overall situation is not sufficient, there is nothing. This is a type of place you should tear down and build a proper new one. So there is nothing at all is okay. Dark, dirty place.
Our researcher has got a job inside Xintang factory, working undercover for a few days. We've asked him to keep a lookout for labels and brands. The factory is big, noisy, with piles of denim everywhere. But he spots this easily. American Eagle Outfitters. He doesn't find any jeans with the Hollister label, but inside the chemical spraying unit, there's this. Abercrombie & Fitch, a major US clothing retailer that also owns Hollister. A separate building houses the workers' dormitories. They are dark and dingy. It is not clear if electrical wirings are still posing a fire risk. Inside the communal canteen, exhausted workers spend their lunchtime sleeping. Despite repeated attempts, our researcher isn't able to do any secret filming inside the sandblasting unit.
做喷砂的这道工序的这个厂区，它的保安看得比较紧，它的门也是锁得比较紧的。那一般人进去就比较难。他们为什么会看得这么严？据我估计，可能是跟喷砂这道工序有点敏感有关系。因为我相信，可能工厂它多多少少也会知道一点。就是喷砂这道工序对人的身体的伤害是比较大，那可能他们也会知道有一些品牌已经开始慢慢的会要求不要用喷砂这道工序了。
This is what A&F says on one of its websites. Abercrombie & Fitch is proud of our commitment to international human and labour rights and to ensuring that our products are only made in safe and responsible facilities. A&F does not support the practice of sandblasting during the manufacturing process of our goods. American Eagle Outfitters is even more unequivocal. The company joined the initiative to eliminate sandblasting in 2011. It says, "Until we believe that proper controls can be put in place to ensure that sandblasting is done safely, we are no longer developing new denim styles with sandblasting." So why are these two companies working with a factory like Xintang?
Either they don't do the monitoring properly and work with business partners, suppliers, traders which they don't monitor well enough, so that they don't know which factories these people are using, or they really squeeze out the last cent in the sourcing process. And then of course it's their responsibility as well, because it's easy to pay 10-20 cents more and go to a factory where you have good conditions.
It's not only factory workers who are suffering from unsafe work practices. The environment is also paying a heavy toll. Outside Xintang, a pipe leads directly into the river. The stench is overpowering. A short distance away, farmers work the land. Long before factories moved into the area, Ma Chong was better known for its bananas. 81-year-old Mr. Mo was born here. He says the area has changed dramatically in the last 20 years.
嚟咗之後咁佢咪就個環境污染咧就唔係好啦，種乜都種唔到，種啲蕉咧嗰陣時即係就冇得死㗎，係咪嗱放出嚟嗰條河水？你話幾污糟啊？要洗生啲水啊，整到啲皮膚生嘢啊、爛啊啲皮膚啊，感染啊！冇人敢落水。
Over the years, villagers living near Xintang have lodged official complaints accusing the factory of damaging the environment. But they say things haven't improved.
係啲廠口污染水啫嘛，你冇乜廠口就冇咩影響啊。嗰啲嘅味道難聞啦，好多你嗰啲味道好難聞㗎咋。
We just need to lock down that venue because then we've got the date.
Christina Dean is the founder of Redress, an NGO advocating sustainable solutions for the garment industry.
Well, producing denim and producing jeans is highly polluting, and it also requires a huge amount of natural resources. Now, research has indicated that just producing one pair of jeans requires 3,625 litres of water, 3 kilos of chemicals, and 400 megajoules of energy, which is the equivalent of running a light bulb on 24 hours a day for 116 days.
Left unchecked, the results can be disastrous. This is a common sight around many factories in Ma Chong and Xintang. Chemical-laced water polluting the land. Mountains of discarded fabric left to rot in the sun. Observers believe the culprits are usually factories that don't work for big-name clients.
There is a global trend for brands to be more responsible and to be more aware of what they do, and that is in response to increased consumer awareness about the dirty production that goes on in the fashion industry.
So again, why are Abercrombie & Fitch and American Eagle Outfitters working with a factory like Xintang? Liang and her fellow activists have decided it's time to shame Xintang's customers. They're protesting outside an American Eagle Outfitters store in Hong Kong. The same day, they also released a report on China's denim industry. In it, they describe the conditions in Xintang factory and name American Eagle Outfitters and Hollister as its clients. It's time for us to act. First, we email American Eagle Outfitters and Hollister's parent company, Abercrombie & Fitch, asking them for their response to the NGO's report. We also tell our researcher to head back to Ma Chong. He arrives 2 days after the protest. At the gate leading to Xintang factory's sandblasting department, he pretends he's looking for a friend.
刚才那个小个子人，他就是打沙的，搞这么多年了，有没有这个人他还不知道啊，他会骗你干嘛？
我再问一下吧，我真的太知道。
下班呢也只有4个人，晚班4个人，白班3个人。
A day later, we receive a reply from A&F. The company confirms that Xintang is indeed their supplier. The email also says, "We do not allow our vendors to use sandblasting during the manufacturing process of our goods, and we audit compliance with this directive on an ongoing basis." Time for us to visit Xintang factory to ask a few direct questions. We arrive 1 week after the release of the NGO report.
你们这里是天强吗？这是不是天强积水厂？
不是，这不是。
哦，这里不就写着天强吗？
不是。
Another man shows up a few minutes later.
你好。你们是天强积水厂？
怎么是？
We hand him the NGO report and explain that we are making a documentary on China's denim industry. We ask if he can answer a few questions.
我可以跟我领导讲一下。
行啊，你告诉他。
好。
While we wait for him to finish his call, our researcher, who is keeping watch nearby, has an unexpected stroke of luck. He meets a group of sandblasters and manages to record their conversation.
那你们现在都去哪里啊？那你们没做是因为被人查出来了吗？还是？
不叫打沙了，客户不让打沙。
为什么突然不让？我前一天我去问，你们还都在搞。
是啊。
我第二天再去问，开始保安不跟我说。这里也要搬，那搬哪里去啊？
谁知道？搬到了没人管。
你们现在是做什么牌子的裤子啊
？AEO 啊。
AEO 是叫什么？我知道了，是不是那个叫一个老鹰还是海鸥是吧？美国鹰。哦，知道了。
你不用拍了啊！不要这样拍，
我马上就砸掉你的哈。
Where we are, things are getting a little tense.
把它关掉。
关了，我放一边了。你没有，我这里你也取出来的哦。好。取消掉了，我要。
我不是威胁记者你，但是你在起码你要给个那个嘛，你就是你要采访也好，怎么也好，是不是？
我问你啊，你们这里面有做喷砂吗？
这个我没办法回答你。
We try again a little later.
陈先生，我问你啊，你们里面有做喷砂吗？
没有喷砂的，我哪里有喷砂？没有做工，没有做那个，不要做它了，我拿走了。
He's trying to break the camera.
As more men show up, we decide it's time to leave. 4 days after our visit to Xintang, we get a response to our email to AEO. The brand's public relations firm informs us that all sandblasting equipment has been removed from the factory. We write back, asking when exactly this took place. They refuse to say. Xintang may have disbanded its sandblasting unit, but elsewhere the practice continues. Over dinner one night, we meet Mr. Liu, a sandblaster who tells us about the death of a colleague.
他干活了，呼吸有问题嘛，老是呼吸着感觉有点上气不接下气那种感觉嘛。
We ask him why he's still sandblasting.
钱呢？我们有钱谁干这谁来这儿干什么呢？
Global denim sales are expected to hit $64 billion by 2020. But it's these workers who are paying the real price for one of fashion's most enduring items.